Carlin, we don't talk enough about menopause and the range of blogs from all ages, 30s up through 60s, where we all talk about our experience with menopause. It was amazing.
I know. I feel so proud. It's
Mhm.
almost like, I just grabbed everyone by the clit. We're going to say the things out loud that no one says, and we're
Right.
going to validate your experience.
Yes, yes. So let's start first with Lakota's blog. Lakota is not in menopause. She's not even perimenopausal. But what I liked about her is she really tells some experiences that she has both with herself and then observing her mother, where how we're all gaslit by the medical community. Her quote, at this point, if you're having this many issues, it's not the birth control, it's you. You should think about seeing a psychiatrist.
Oh, this makes me crazy. So she
Mhm.
was going through the pill and different dosages, and it just did not work for her. She was getting very emotional and very upset and crying all the time. So she's like, I know that this hormone birth control doesn't work for me. And then they gave her the NuvaRing.
Yes.
I think they've taken that off the market. Um, they never listen to our experience. And when she said that, I'm like, I'm going to share that line because that's how we are as women. It's like the knee jerk, go on the pill, and if the pill doesn't work, there's something wrong with you.
Well, and that's the pill is often given as a first time stop when you're in perimenopause or menopausal. I know that was my experience too.
They did the
Although,
same thing to me, and I said no. I'm like, the
right?
pill's not going to do it because I need more than just a little dose of estrogen. I need progesterone.
Right. And then the minute it's not working for your body, like the medical professionals say, oh, it must all be in your head. Right?
That's what my gynecologist told me when I explained my symptoms, and I'm 51. She said, "Oh, well, here's a therapist you can go to."
Yes.
And I said,
Yes.
"A therapist? That's not going to help me. It's
Yes.
something in my body."
Yes, yes, yes. So Lakota's story is very pertinent. I'm sure it's relatable to many women because we've all experienced that where we've had a problem in our body and we're told it's all in your head. Then we have Esther's blog. Esther is in her 60s. Her quote, it wasn't until I started routine vaginal estrogen, vulva massages, self penetration with lots of lube that my genital urinary symptoms resolved and no longer needed oxybutynin.
I feel the same way. I regularly stimulate my body and I do self penetration, and
Hmm.
I have not had an issue with lubrication or
Hmm.
my arousal or desire or my length to orgasm getting longer. And I
Hmm.
think it's because I'm getting blood flow and I'm lighting up my pleasure network on a regular basis.
Yes, yes. So when you combine hormone therapy, safe hormone therapy, with touch, it makes a huge difference.
Can you imagine doctors telling you that? Going in, you have all your symptoms, and like, okay, here's your prescription. And by the way, once a day, I want you to do a vulva massage. Like,
Mhm.
how holistic, how wonderful.
Right, right, right. And, I know that our whole discussion around menopause among us as coaches and just this whole blog writing process, it really got Esther to think and to read more research and change what she was doing for herself and explore. Next, we have Lincoln. And Lincoln actually wrote 3 different blog posts because she just had 3 distinct topics. So we're going to talk about one of hers here, but all of her blog posts are linked. So after you read one, you can go to the next one. She's just such a great writer. I just always find myself pulled right in. So here's her quote. Where I've landed for myself is that the heavy bleeding was caused by whatever underlying imbalance was already present before I technically entered perimenopause, coupled with the stress of crowd control chemicals, living in a van, mixed with all the other stresses of being a modern person living through a pandemic.
So she had this unbelievable experience where she was hemorrhaging. She was just bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and it wouldn't stop. And she went to all kinds of doctors. And I didn't remember this, but she had been hit in the leg with a flash grenade
Hmm.
at a protest. And that's what started it. And they talk about the disruptors,
Hmm.
the chemicals that disrupt our menstrual cycle. So as she's heading into perimenopause, she has this trauma.
Right, right. And then she would see doctors, and the doctors would tell her, "Oh, that's normal. Oh, this is just perimenopause." It can't be perimenopause when you're bleeding, hemorrhaging so heavily that you can't leave your house, you can't leave your space.
And this creates a vicious cycle because the
Mhm,
more you bleed and hemorrhage, the less iron you have. And then the less iron you have, the more you bleed. So
mhm,
if you're having really heavy periods or you're like hemorrhaging like she was, you have to take an iron supplement. And not one doctor told her to do that.
mhm. Right, right. I mean, it really is amazing. So her blog post called "Hemorrhaging" is all about how she worked through this process and got to the other side. I think of all of us, I've had the most experience with hormone therapy.
You're totally my Sherpa,
Yeah.
and like, I would hear your voice in my ear because I did the same thing where you're like, "Oh my god, will I get cancer if I take hormone replacement?" And I'm like, "No, Laura's been on hormone replacement for what, 30 years now?"
Right. It's been almost 30 years. And so in my blog post, I share my journey from the beginning of when I went into a premature menopause at age 37. So my quote, "Compounded hormone therapy seems taboo among many healthcare professionals because it's not FDA approved. Yet, this is the approach that works best for me."
And thank you for sharing this because it's hard to go first person and share
Mhm,
something that's controversial.
mhm,
And now I'm hearing it on TikTok. Doctors, female doctors are talking about how it's not just estrogen, it's
mhm.
testosterone and
Right.
progesterone. And you had a complete hysterectomy in your 30s.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I was 42. So hit menopause, and then 5 years later, I had a hysterectomy. So that's a game changer. If you've had a hysterectomy, yeah, your menopause is different.
Laura did it. Laura's here. You're 65 now. You're
Mhm.
healthy. You're active. Trust your body
Mhm. Right.
and just keep on going. And if someone says no, go to another practitioner.
That's exactly it. I mean, and it's a constant a constant going through and finding the right practitioner for you and getting the right dosage for you and getting the right treatment for you because there are
Mhm.
choices, and some work just like at orgasm. Some things work for some bodies and not for others. So you really need to find that individual approach. um, Carlin, yours. What I love about your blog post and your sharing is that you're talking in real time because you've been going through this. So your post is so relatable for many women who sense that something is wrong and they're not sure what to do next. So you share everything that you've tried. Your quote, "All of my symptoms were in my body, and I knew there was a physical treatment. I dug deep and kept going."
I thought it was in the beginning, people said, "Oh, it's repressed grief from Betty's death and the pandemic and all the
Mhm,
craziness, not being able to see her and say goodbye." And then it was like, "Oh, you're just stressed out. You just need to relax.
mhm,
Have a glass of wine and take a bath." If one more person said that, I was gonna just punch him in the face. Um, and just being like, "No, I'm feeling it in my body.
mhm,
I'm not feeling like disconnected or blocked emotionally or intellectually. Like I'm feeling it like I'm sweating and I'm having these surges of emotion and anger, but it's all related to what I'm feeling in my body." So I'm
right.
like, no, I'm just, and I combine orgasm with hormone replacement. And that
Yes.
has really worked for me. And I also wanted to promote, we've been doing audio podcast long form about our experience. So I'll put the link in here, but you can go to soundcloud.com/Betty Dotson/menopause. And we're going to be adding to it.
And the link below the blog post, you'll find a link to the SoundCloud, podcast as well.